Hello and welcome to tonight's edition of the Evening Review. My name is Tewan Jabela, your host for tonight. Let's quickly look at the front page of Namibian Sun of today before we proceed to an interesting interview with the Paramount Chief of Ovaherero, Koro. So tonight we are elevating the conversation a bit. I'm joined in the studio by Paramount Chief of Ovaherero, Advocate Koro. Welcome to the show, Paramount Chief.
Thank you, Trevor. Pleasure to be here.
Yes, thank you, sir. Yeah, man, just to start with, Paramount Chief, you are one of the lead campaigners for the genocide issue. Nama Ovaherero, the Nama genocide issue. What is the latest in that regard? What can you brief us about the status of that issue?
Well, as you know, we, after having tried in vain to engage the German government across the negotiating table, trying to resolve this matter diplomatically on the basis of the National Assembly resolution that was passed by our parliament in 2006.
Yeah.
And they felt that no, they do not discuss these matters with non-state, non-sovereign entities. We were left with no option but to drag the German authorities to court in New York,
yes,
in the United States. And during the first round of the litigation, the court ruled against us purely on a technicality, as a matter of jurisdiction. We were not satisfied with the ruling and took it up on appeal. So that matter now is at the appellate division, where it has been since October last year.
Yeah.
And yes, we are waiting for the judgment in that case. As you know, then since December, Corona or COVID-19 broke out.
Yes.
New York is one of the hard-hittest, that was hard hit by this outbreak.
Yes, yes.
And even the courts were not spared. And therefore the proceedings of the courts were also affected. So currently we are in limbo, waiting to hear from our lawyers as well as the court when the judgment will come out.
Indeed.
So that's where we are.
Yes, yes. And thank you for that, Paramount Chief. But let's talk about your pursuit of this matter as a non-state actor. What is your issue with leaving this matter in the hands of the state, to engage state on state with the Germans?
Well, we have not left it in the hands of the state because of the two governments. Our government is the one that has decided to exclude us from the negotiating table. When the current administration of President Geingob came in, he, in his own judgment, decided that the negotiations must be confined to the two governments, Germany and the Namibian government, state to state, and must not involve the victim groups, the Namas and the Hereros, the descendants of the people who were murdered and actually exterminated by the Germans way back in the 20th century, as demanded by the clear language of the National Assembly resolution.
Yeah.
And we fought very hard, not only trying to persuade the Germans, but in the first place, our own government,
Yes.
that we deserve, as of right, a place at the negotiating table. Because, after all, it cannot be about us, but without us. And that is also the case in terms of the various international law principles, as well as United Nations principles dealing with genocide issues. For reasons best known to our own government, they decided that no, they must be the lead participants, and then through a framework of just advisory committees, subcommittees, that's where what they call the affected parties can then be then come in as, people to be consulted as and when necessary through the special envoy to be appointed by government, or who was appointed by the president.
That's not Dr. Ngavirwe.
That's Dr. Ngavirwe. And we felt that that arrangement did not suit us, was totally inadequate and not satisfactory. And yes, so we, through that kind of situation, we felt that it does not serve our interests. Yeah.
How would you have wanted this to be structured? If you wanted this to be truly representative in your ideal mind, how would it been structured that to your satisfaction?
Well, in terms of the National Assembly resolution, it called for a discussion between, on the one hand, representatives of the victim groups, therefore representatives of the Namas, leaders of the Namas and the Hereros on the one side, and representatives of the German government on the other, as well as representatives of our own government.
Yeah.
They should be at the table. So ideally we are talking of a trialogue.
Yes.
Or if you want then a bilateral, then a German government on the other side of the table, and the Namibian delegation on this side of the table, but consisting of two components.
Yes.
The Namibian government on here,
Yes.
and the other component consisting of a delegation of the victim groups.
Yes.
As simple as that. It goes without saying that clearly the interests of the victim groups will not at all times be the same as the interest of the Namibian government during the negotiations. And therefore, we need to be there at the table with our own leadership, putting the matters across by ourselves, and not necessarily through a representative of the Namibian government.
Indeed. Now, Paramount Chief Rukoro, What is the what are the demands? What is it that must happen to settle this matter for all, once and for all? I'm not talking about the structuring of the negotiation groups now, but what is it that Germany must do to the satisfaction of the affected communities?
Well, it's simple. We need to be there, meet with the German guys. They know that as per the National Assembly resolution, our National Assembly simply said Germany must acknowledge in the first place that they committed a brutal act of genocide against our ancestors.
Yes.
Pure and simple.
Yes.
Until today, they have refused to come out and in simple English or German or Chiherer or Nama to say, yes, they have done that. They come out with all kinds of, yes, what has happened was an act of atrocity. It was we are kind of regret that it was some kind of, I don't know what they say. You have read all kinds of things. But they are not prepared to say it was an act of genocide. Number two, they must apologize for that genocide. And they apologize to who? Well, to the very people to whom they have committed this, against whom they have committed the genocide. So that genocide, that apology in the first place must be directed to the descendants of the people that were the subject matter of the extermination orders and who also suffered the genocide. That is the Hereros and the Namas in the first place.
Yes.
Before then, the other formalities of going to our parliament or whoever it is that they want to extend it as a matter of formality. And they must deal with the legitimate leadership of the people concerned. And in a format and in a manner and at a place that we agree to. Thirdly, having apologized, then yes, they must sit down with us and we must agree that they must pay compensation, which we call reparations, or any other word, but by the end of the day is they must make good the damage that they have done to our people. They have taken the lives of our ancestors. They have expropriated our properties, the properties of our ancestors, which today would have been our inheritance. Our lands, our ancestral lands, the livestock. So we are talking of movable and immovable property. They have done innumerable damage, psychological, 101 other things, which must become the subject matter of negotiations and discussions between us and them.
Indeed. Speaking of land, Paramount Chief, in 2018 you were one of the people who boycotted the Second National Land Conference that President Geingob convened, and you actually lobbied people not to attend the event. What was your issue with that conference?
Well, the conference, the way it was organized, and as it turned out, the whole structuring of the conference, it was clear that it was not intended to achieve or to serve a meaningful purpose. You cannot call a conference on the land, in particular ancestral land, and then 75 to 80% of the delegates are people who have never lost the land in the first place at all. And those of us who were the subject of actually losing the land at gunpoint, and who were the subject matter of going through extermination in order to lose the land. Basically, we were the minority. We are going to be the minority at that conference. Secondly, we find out that government had a secret document drawn up at a policy conference of the ruling party, which makes it very clear that as a matter of government policy, ancestral land is off the table. And ancestral land, we can forget about it. Those of us who have lost ancestral land, we can forget about it. And then spokespersons of the Elders Council of the party and other sections or wings start to make legal pronouncements to that effect. This document then, started to leak. There's denials about it, but other people in government make it very clear to us that no, the document is legitimate. Now, why should we participate in a sham of a conference that we know for sure that in the first place we are in the minority when it comes to representation, and secondly, government is not committed to a fair and legitimate deal when it comes to the resolution of the land. And then when we look at 30 years later to land distribution, government buys land using our tax dollars. Our tax dollars. They buy land, the very ancestral land. When some of the white people who sit on this land decide to, on the basis of willing seller, willing buyer, to sell it to government, and to whom do they then distribute this land? Not to us, the descendants of those who actually lost the lands at the hands of colonialism. No. They distribute this land to fellow blacks, descendants of people who never lost land. And who are these people? Some of them are people who, well-to-do people. Top government bureaucrats, permanent secretaries, directors, governors, people who were similarly placed like ourselves, who can afford to go to the land bank or any other commercial bank, take out a loan, and buy their own farms. Now, are we for real? Or are we a government of, fat cats? And then the only explanation we give is, but these guys were also in the struggle. Therefore, they also deserve to be given free farms with state money, with taxpayers' dollars. Who was not in the struggle? So, seriously, this is extremely painful for those of us whose parents took up arms as a guise bow and arrows to resist colonialism, German colonialisms, whose blood waters the freedom of this nation. And then had to die, lost their ancestral lands. And yes, Namibia is now free.
Yes.
It's independent. We have a flag, a national anthem.
Yes.
But to the Herero and the Nama, we have a special connection with the land.
Yes.
And the land to us goes together with livestock, both of which were taken by the Germans.
Indeed.
We have a parliament, we have a government. Do we have the land? Yes, we are independent. Are we free?
Yeah.
For us, it's not yet Uhuru.
Yes.
And that's why to us, the Germans and our government can talk until the cows come home. They can even sign any deal on paper. That deal is not worth even, will not even have the value of a toilet paper. Toilet paper is more valuable. It will mean nothing as long as we, the leadership of the descendants of the people who died during 1904 to 1907,
Yes.
are not part of that deal.
What do you say, Paramount Chief, to the assertion at the time? I remember, I don't know whether it was in the opening remarks or just in the build-up to that conference in 2018, when President Hage Geingob said that, of course, eventually. Let me first, in fact, ask you this, Paramount Chief. The Waitela Commission on ancestral land, has it engaged you on this subject?
The Land Commission.
The Ancestral Land Commission, the inquiry into ancestral land claims that is led by Judge Waitele.
No, it has not engaged us, and we opted not even to appear before the commission because it's a product of a conference that we boycotted, and we know that we know for sure that nothing will come out of the commission that will satisfy our minimum expectations. That is, giving us our lands as a minimum demand. No, nothing. We have waited for 30 years. What can happen out of this commission? Nothing.
Yeah. So when President Geingob says that at the time that ancestral land will lead us back to Bantustans, what did you make of that statement?
Well, that shows the mentality and the misunderstanding and of the leadership of the ruling party, that whilst for us the basis of the struggle was the land, for others the basis of the struggle was the Boers leave, they take over, and then they reach an accommodation with white capital, and the Germans, with whom they are now in bed, and with whom they want to sign a deal virtually at all cost, as long as they can get a couple of dollars in the form of what they call to finance development projects. Then to them, that's a deal. And so there is basically an unholy alliance, a criminal conspiracy between political power and the economic power of the Germans to perpetuate the suffering of the descendants of the people who were the Germans murdered way back during 1904 to 1907. But they forget the lessons of history. You can't oppress people forever. No amount of power, whether military or otherwise, even with a foreign power like Germany, is going to keep people under oppression. People will rise up. And I think you must be really blind if you can't see that the writing is on the wall. Right here in this country of ours.
Now, Paramount Chief, something interesting strikes me when I engage you. You are visibly very, very unhappy with how government is handling issues of genocide, issues of land. But
issues of the economy.
Issues of the economy.
Issues of transformation.
Yes, indeed.
And it's not only me.
Yeah, of course not.
It's the whole country.
I understand that. So, against that background, just for interest's sake, why did Paramount Chief donate $100,000 to the campaign of President Geingob towards in the build-up to the SWAPO Congress of 2017? Was that because you did not have issues with his administration at the time, or you just thought that you were giving him another chance to transform himself into the kind of president that you wanted to see?
Well, that was at the time when, you see, President Geingob is, or maybe now, I think I should maybe say was, at least if I have to go by his statement in Parliament during the last State of the Nation address, when he said that we used to be friends.
Yes.
But apparently we are no longer friends.
I remember.
We are now maybe enemies. Seemingly because we differ politically. That has now impacted our relationship, which I thought was a private issue. Now it was raised to impact at state business and public affairs, which has shocked so many people, and especially the fact that the announcement was made at the parliamentary platform and the platform of a State of the Nation address. Yeah, I wanted to say he used to be, we were friends, personal friends. And as a personal friend who was fighting a very important political campaign, and against another platform, and I felt that he was the best candidate in the circumstances to lead the country. Another party cadre, KK, came out and against all odds and said, look here guys, this country and this party cannot be the monopoly of only one tribe. therefore, give a chance to somebody else from another tribe to also lead this great party and this country. Now, make no mistake, that was not something easy for somebody to say and to do.
Yes.
He stuck out his neck. And who else did that? Nobody. So the least I could do, not being a politician, but just a traditional leader and a personal friend of Geingob, was at least to put a couple of dollars on the table in support of a personal friend's campaign. And that's all that I did. I had a couple of dollars, you say 100,000, and I donated that to a personal friend to do the right thing. Because I believed genuinely that among the contestants, he had the best to offer in the circumstances. I believed he had what it took.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in hindsight, in hindsight today, Paramount Chief, do you, if you had a second chance, would you have still done the same, or do you somehow now think that you shouldn't have done that? Especially when you seem to be not entirely happy with the leadership that has been provided to the country in the past couple of years.
I think that looking at the lost opportunities and the capacity that President Geingob has, seriously, President Geingob has the capacity, or had the capacity, 5 years in the job, to have taken Namibia to great heights. On the issues of genocide, on the issues of land transformation, on the issues across the board. But I'm sorry to say that it looks like he's been in the driving seat, but he's forever been listening to somebody who's sitting at the back seat to say, now 10 left, now 10 right, now drive at 80 kilometers an hour, now go 60, now go 120, now stop, now do whatever. And yeah, and in the process, the country lost serious opportunities for taking off at great speed.
Indeed. The final question, Paramount Chief, is you were a deputy minister in, that time you were still with SWANU in the early 90s. President Nyoma appointed you as Minister of Justice, and then eventually you became a member of SWAPO. But we've learned that now when Esther Mwinyangwe, Honorable Esther Mwinyangwe, was appointed as Deputy Minister of Health, she was removed from a genocide committee that results under her leadership, because there's a feeling that she might be, her judgment and everything might be clouded by her new obligations. So people are trying to draw these comparisons of an opposition member serving as a deputy minister in a Swabo government, which happened with you also in the early 90s. Do you think that this was the right decision for the traditional authority to do, to say she must be excused from those duties?
Oh yes, it was the right decision. And to try and compare my serving under President Nyoma at independence, which is 30 years ago, with Honorable Muinyangwe, and the circumstances under which she accepted her position under President Geingob, are two different things. Well, to start with, when I was approached by President Nyoma to come and serve in his government, the offer came via then Prime Minister-elect or designate Geingob. And I said, well, thank you. I remember it was on a Tuesday, but I need to consult my party because, as you know, the position that I'm sitting in Parliament, I'm just the incumbent, but the position is not mine. It belongs to the party. So he said, okay, but please try to be quick with the answer because the president needs to finalize his government. I said, okay, I'll try to finalize as quick as possible, but you must appreciate that these guys can only meet over the weekend because they are working people. And that can only be this coming Saturday, Sunday. All right, so we, the colleagues met on Saturday. The decision was taken. And then I said, by the way, Comrade PM, why did you offer this? Why did you come to this decision? Why did you decide to offer me this position? And he said, oh, that's easy. I'll tell you. Firstly, we are following the policy of national reconciliation. If we can get reconciled with our former enemies, when the people we fought against, the white people, then what about our own fellow black guys that we were fighting together in the struggle? In your particular case, you Party Swanu, we were freedom fighters together. So we were children of the same father. So we struggled together, and so it's only right that now that the country is free, we should share in the major job of trying to build this nation. More importantly, we were together in this huge assignment of drafting the country's constitution. We saw you in action, and we were pleased with what we saw. And your skills that were demonstrated there in action. We believe that together with Comrade Chiriange in the Justice Department, there's a lot that can be of use in the public legal sector. I said, okay, fine. So I went to my leadership. The matter was discussed at the level of the SWANU Executive and Central Committee. They are approved. They said in principle they are happy. And they then said that they were only uncomfortable with one thing, and namely that, look here, as Deputy Minister, your contribution will basically only be confined to the legal division, namely the Ministry of Justice. Because as Deputy Minister, you won't sit in cabinet, which is the heart of government, and where your contribution could really make a difference. Therefore, they would insist that their approval is conditional upon you being allowed, although you are Deputy Minister, you being allowed to an exception being made to the rule that Deputy Ministers cannot sit in cabinet, that you be allowed to being invited to sit in cabinet for the duration of your term. So that as a matter of policy, you can also participate in policy decisions. Because then, as Deputy Minister, you will be expected, you will be bound by the principle of collective ministerial responsibility. Now, if you are not in cabinet and decisions are taken in cabinet, at least you will debate, you'll be able to help shape government policies so that when you are bound by them, you had an opportunity to convince other ministers there. Otherwise, when you sit in the office of the minister and you are not in cabinet, then how will you participate in policy formulation? So, and that was critical.
Yes.
If you are not going to be allowed to sit in cabinet, then the deal
is off.
Also, there were other conditionalities which were put there, but I will not bring them here in the interview.
Yes, in the interest of time also, yes.
In the interest of time as well.
Yes.
Two others. All those conditionalities were adhered to. And it was on the basis of those that I agreed to serve. And indeed then served. And I was allowed to sit in cabinet. Now, coming back to this one. Number one, as Paramount Chief of the Overheaders, the Genocide Portfolio, OGF is a committee of the Overheader people. It resorts under me.
Yes.
It's not an independent entity by itself. The chairman of that committee is appointed by the Chief Council of the Overheader people. It's not a body that run by itself. The Overheader people and the Chief Council and myself, for the first time, we heard through the media and social media that our chairman was a minister or a deputy minister in government. And that's not how things should be done. But that's not the big deal. We and I am not opposed to Ishiwa serving this nation as deputy minister. And I told her to her own face that. I'm not opposed to her being a deputy minister in government. What I discussed with her and agreed with her is that, cognizant of the fact that the position of government on genocide is diametrically opposed to the position of the Herero people, as you know. The position of government, for instance, on ancestral land, is diametrically opposed to the position of the Herero people on land issues. These matters are going to put her in an incurable conflict position, considering the fact that as a minister, she will be bound by the principle of collective ministerial responsibility. So government has already a position on this. She will be expected to toe the government line.
Yes.
She can't say that, look here, on genocide, I will toe the Herero line.
Yes.
While she's a minister. Then she must resign her ministerial position.
Yes.
Pure and simple. So we agreed that she must voluntarily give up the genocide position so that she can concentrate full-time on the political positions of NUTO, of Parliament, and the ministerial office. That was the deal that we discussed on a Tuesday.
Yes.
That the next day, Wednesday, that was before the lockdown of Windhoek. She was going to voluntarily write me a letter to say that because of the workload, and we discussed the workload as well, that because of all these positions, the priority will for sure go to her work in Parliament and the ministerial office, which is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And the genocide thing is, she will think of genocide when she comes back home 11 o'clock. And I said, that cannot be.
Yes.
So therefore, she will voluntarily give back the genocide position so that I can appoint somebody else.
Indeed. Makes sense.
That's the deal we reached. And when I say so, that's the truth.
Yes. Makes sense.
The next day when she was supposed to give me that letter, the letter read something else.
Which is?
Which is that I've decided to not give up the position yet.
Yes.
I want to go and consult my party NUTO and my colleagues in the genocide movement, my committee, and my genocide power base, or words to that effect. And I was flabbergasted. And I called her 3-4 times. She wouldn't pick up the phone. And I called my Secretary General and said, please, can you try to call Ushi and tell her that I urgently need to talk to her about the letter she wrote me, which he did. And she promised to call back. She didn't. That was 1 o'clock p.m. I sat by the phone until 10 o'clock p.m. The call wouldn't come. I discussed with my chiefs, including the chairman of the Chiefs Council. And then the decision was taken, well, in those circumstances, it looks like we need to do what leadership needs to do. And that's when we said, well, we stand by yesterday's decision that we took with her. And the rest is history.
The rest is history.
So it was taken in the national interest, in the Honorable Minister's interest, to enable her to concentrate on her political work, on her government position, which we never questioned.
Indeed.
Because we felt that that is a political position between her and her party.
Indeed.
But that the position being a position within the Overhero Traditional Authority,
Yeah.
carrying out our mandate to lead the genocide position, the genocide issue, which has always been leadership driven.
Yes.
We cannot delegate to anybody. It's within our power, and it was not because, as somebody put it, when Rukoro was deputy minister, it was all in good. But if somebody else is now serving government, then it is bad.
Yeah.
That is disinformation. It is nonsense. It's not what happened. These were matters of principle.
Yes.
And my position was discussed at the highest level of the party. In fact, it took 2 weeks before I responded to President Nyoma.
I understand. Must conclude now.
And it was authorized.
Indeed.
The two situations are not the same.
I understand. I think you've put it correctly now. The context is clear.
The context is totally different.
Yes. Paramount Chief, thank you very much for coming through. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes. That was Ombara Shitambi Rukoro, Paramount Chief of Overhero, speaking to us about a host of issues. Thank you for watching, and let's quickly look at the weather for tonight.